Hi, everyone, and welcome. This week on TechWatch, I'm interviewing Dean Bubley, renowned telecom analyst, and also my good friend. We'll be talking about indoor wireless and all its intricacies. Join me right after this. Hi, everyone, and welcome. Today on TechWatch, my guest is Dean Bubley. He's probably very well known to many of you out there as an analyst and a futurist. And today, Dean is going to tell us more about the importance of indoor coverage, indoor services in telecom. Why is it an issue that we need to deal with, and how to deal with it? And Dean, I'm going to pull up your presentation and just go ahead and tell us what you've got here.
Great. Thanks, Klaus, and thanks for the invitation. So, as Klaus said, I'm an industry analyst and advisor, and I cover a lot of different areas of wireless and technology and policy. One of my recurring themes is around the importance of indoor wireless, and I'll explain why that's quite an expansive and what I refer to as multi-stakeholder domain. There's a lot of things. Wi-Fi is a critically important part of that, but so is cellular, and so are some other technologies as well. And I'm going to be running an event and a workshop on July 16th in London to sort of bring some people together who don't normally talk to each other to try to thrash out what's important. So first off to say is, indoors is a nice simple word, but it's actually quite a complicated domain. You've got everything from residential homes, which could be individual homes or multi-dwelling units, apartments. You've got industrial properties like factories and warehouses, public spaces like airports and shopping malls and stadiums. Any given city might have thousands or tens of thousands of complicated structures. Some people also include things like in-vehicle as part of indoor as well. So you've got all these different environments, different sizes, different construction materials, different ownership models, and this makes it really complicated. There's no one size fits all. It's also huge. So globally, there's a 250 billion square meters of indoor floor space. And for people in the US and other markets, roughly speaking, a square meter is 10 square feet. So, that gives you an idea of just how much we have to think about. And in terms of actually giving good wireless, that can be relatively expensive, particularly if you want to have full indoor cellular. It's typically less cost for Wi-Fi unless it's really high performance, but there's a lot of different ways of doing this. And then the question is, given these costs, who pays? Usually for Wi-Fi, it's an enterprise owner who will pay for Wi-Fi in their building. Sometimes it's complicated if they're a tenant in an office block or something. Is it the property owner or the tenant for a given floor or unit? And then same thing in residential. It might be the homeowner who pays for it, or it might be you get Wi-Fi as part of your home gateway and package from your service provider. And then for small businesses and retail, there's various options there as well. One of the things which always crops up when these discussions is Wi-Fi, cellular, and even in cellular, is it public cellular from mobile operators or private cellular, CBRS in the US or private or local 5G in parts of Europe and Asia? And the answer, to be honest, is both. Ideally, you have good coverage for cellular and good coverage for Wi-Fi and capacity and performance because they service different things. So TVs, for example, are almost exclusively either wired or Wi-Fi connections. Most laptops, most AR, VR devices rely on Wi-Fi, sometimes USB connections, things like that. Roaming users are very Wi-Fi dependent, children with tablets, so on. At the other end, cellular only, it tends to be some vehicles don't always connect to local Wi-Fi. Some enterprise try to limit their staff, employees, and lock them down to cellular for some devices. And you've got certain other things, public safety use their own radios and so on. And typically with smartphones, most of us use both of them. So we'll probably use Wi-Fi at our home, our office, our school, perhaps in public locations if it's easy to access, but we'll also leave the cellular radio on, and unless we're roaming and there's huge charges. So ideally you want both. Looking to the future with things like physical AI and robotics, again, it's going to be a mix. Most robots don't go wandering down the street. They're indoor only. They'll probably rely on Wi-Fi. In a factory setting, maybe some will use 5G. It will vary. But the idea, again, is it's both of them And in fact, not just both cellular and Wi-Fi. There's a whole bunch of other wireless technologies as well. So smart home technologies, industrial protocols, audio visual for microphones. The event I'm running is probably going to mostly focus on cellular and Wi-Fi, but we also need to think about everything from public safety radios to, well, satellite and GPS is an interesting one. And actually, one of the things we're seeing at the moment is an interest in how do you make satellite services work indoors? Do you hand off to Wi-Fi? Do you try to have some sort of repeater? We've got to have, at the time I'm recording this, but just before SpaceX's IPO, and they're obviously interested in direct to device, which is great. And so are other satellite companies, but they won't go through ceilings and walls. So then the question is, what's their indoor strategy if they want to, maybe they can do an MVNO deal with a mobile operator. Maybe they can partner with some Wi-Fi owners, but that's not going to cover everywhere. I think they're going to have a patchwork. One of the things I want to explore is what's the indoor complement to satellite services?
Well, but it's also complex from a regulatory point of view, right?
Yes.
And there has been very little, as far as I know, regulation that really takes into account all of this.
All of it, no. I think we're getting better, and partly because I and a few other people have been shouting about this. There was a discussion document that Ofcom in the UK put out recently. I've talked to BEREC, the European regulatory body, about this. FCC in the US is aware of this, although it hasn't published anything specifically on indoor wireless. European Commission, it's getting there slowly. There's a couple of bits in the proposed Digital Networks Act. Middle Eastern regulators are pretty good on this. I saw a presentation from a Saudi Arabian tower company who was saying, well, actually, in Saudi Arabia, and I think something similar in UAE and other Gulf states, they now have rules which say if you're building a site with more than 7 stories or more than, I think, 1,000 or 2,000 people visiting it regularly, it's got to have good indoor cellular and good Wi-Fi. And that's driving the demand for sort of more advanced, what are called neutral host players. But the issue here is that not all these stakeholders, they don't talk to each other as much. So you might find the Wi-Fi industry doesn't always talk to the cellular neutral host people or the private cellular people. And then you've got building owners, you've got the tenants, you've got industrial companies, property companies doing big developments like sort of city regeneration projects, local authorities that might need to do planning permission, policymakers as well as regulators who everyone for example, in Europe, they've got this big thing about gigabit for everyone, which typically means fiber or maybe cable, but they only think as far as the front door. But actually, if you want to have telemedicine or education or more use of robotics or AI, you need to actually connect to devices. And I think that we're slowly getting to a view that we may need to actually think about all of this holistically, even if we have internal disagreements and there's overlaps on the Venn diagram.
Right. And my belief right now is that the big chunk of the mobile industry is a little bit less adamant as far as not introducing Wi-Fi offload at this time. They used to be very strictly against it, but I think the time has come where, for example, what we used to call Wi-Fi offload or
federation as well.
Yes, that they're more open to it.
Yeah, and absolutely, and in certain places more so than others. I mean, there are some businesses and some business locations that need indoor wireless connectivity by whatever means. So if you think about someone at an airport who's got to get their boarding pass up on the phone, they can use cellular, they can use Wi-Fi if it's easy to get onto it. But what you don't want at an airport or a railway station is people trying to go through a captive portal or trying to work out if they can switch on roaming and not get charged a lot or install an eSIM or any of this sort of stuff. You don't want someone doing that at the ticket gate or at the boarding gate. You just want, frankly, even if it's like a restaurant, which has got a sort of little logo of please send a video to TikTok or Instagram, and they've got a little QR code on the wall. They want you to be able to do that or to download the menu. You go to a lot of restaurants these days and there's a QR code instead of a menu. So you need connectivity of some sort.
Right. Dean, it's great to have you on TechWatch today. And your workshop is going to happen on July 16th, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's July 16th. It's in London. And if you look on either my LinkedIn, or there'll be a link hopefully in the
Sure.
show notes, and there's an event page expanded all for the agenda and the details. There's an early bird until the end of June. Also contact me if there's anything you'd like to
Sure.
discuss in more detail. We might have a room for a couple of people to do sort of short stimulus presentations. It's not like a vendor pitch, but
Right.
it's like someone who's got something genuinely useful, some data, or a way
Right.
they solve this problem. We might be able to squeeze some people in as well.
It's a huge topic, and it's also a huge business opportunity in many ways, right? And obviously, there are companies, of course, already
Oh
providing
yeah.
lots of indoor wireless, but bringing it together across these various silos is another business opportunity.
I mean, absolutely, and I think there's there's an infrastructure play for investors here as well. You already
Mhm.
see some of typically the infrastructure and tower companies offering neutral host services. Neutral host is typically cellular first, so having the building owners, for example, paying for multi-operator coverage in buildings. Some of them provide Wi-Fi as well. Some of them support private networks on the infrastructure,
Mhm.
and that's an area where there's different models of cooperation and different amounts in which the regulators participate and understand it. The UK has a group called JOTS, which is the mobile operators working together with common specifications for in-building cellular. And then you've also got sort of a framework for neutral host, which is expanding into adding Wi-Fi and managed IT and AI services as well. AI is another dimension of all of this because it makes indoor, firstly, it should make the design more easy, but it also might change the pattern of demand for wireless devices and uses and connection management. And that's something to explore.
Yeah, it's a huge topic too. And on top of that, of course, the AI dimension makes it even more complex, and also I think even more of a business opportunity if you can incorporate AI
Yeah.
into making all of this basically more efficient, right?
What you might find is AI abstracts some of it, and you might find there's what's called the intent layer. If basically you tell the AI, I need to be connected, or my application needs to be connected, maybe with some parameters, this amount of security, this amount of speed, and
Uh-huh.
in theory at least, maybe it goes away and works out, this is how I get on the Wi-Fi, this is how I get on cellular, how I bond them together, how do I optimize for cost and security and privacy and maybe sovereignty,
Yep.
another hot topic at the moment.
Absolutely. Dean, thank you so much for coming on Tech Watch, and we look forward to having you on next time. Maybe you can come back and tell us a little bit about how everything
Ab-
went in London. It's a super
Absolutely.
exciting topic, and thank you for bringing everybody together for this. It's
Mm,
really a big thing. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm really hoping to get people together. Thank you so much for this
All right.
class.
You're so
Thank you.
welcome. See you next time. Bye.